This is Taking Flight. Before I died, I was just trying to be a normal teenager. While a lot of kids at the Toledo Technology Academy went to the robotics team after school, my best friend Athen and I preferred to mingle at the Westfield Mall with other girls from other schools. The only 4 girls in our grade at TTA dated upperclassmen. Desperate to find girlfriends, Athen and I perused the food court and hip stores to gain perspective on the regulars. They were mostly from public schools, and they stuck together in their respective cliques. Preppy, sporty, religious, but then there were the outsiders, the nerds, the artists, vocational school girls on the fringes of normalcy. I was most drawn to the art school crowd, dressed in all black, wearing concealer and pearl powder. Athen and I were still in uniform, green polo and khakis. There was a part of me that knew I would fit in better with the art kids than I ever could at my own school. I had no place studying robots at the Technology Academy. Art was in my soul. I envied those other students who learned to create art, not machines. I wanted to infiltrate their space, become one of them. Being dead is like binge watching an adaptation of your life story. All you do is watch this other person say all of the stupid or meaningful things that you said in life. My adaptation begins when I met the girl who changed my life. It was the 3rd week of September, sophomore year. 3 o'clock, Athen said, theater kids, new girl, she's definitely a man-eater. I snuck a 3/4 turn look her way, making eye contact from across the packed food court. She had fair skin, ash brown hair that met her shoulders, and green eyes like a forest at sunset. She's looking right over here, I said. If I don't make this girl fall in love with me, I'm going to literally die. Isn't life ironic? You're the most dramatic person I've ever met, Athen said, shaking his head. It's just like you to steal a girl out from under me. As we walked toward the group, the girl looked up at me and then looked away just as quickly. I could see her telling her friend that we were coming over. What's up, everybody? I said, trying to be casual. You go to the art school, right? How'd you guess? Her friend asked, pointing down to her shirt that had Toledo School for the Arts printed above a graphic of a jagged hook and a pirate ship. She was the taller of the two, with jet black hair and a nose ring. Cool, I said. We go to TTA. But I was thinking about transferring to your school. I really want to be an actor, see? I glanced down right at that moment to take in a perfect, slightly crooked smile on the face of the girl I had made eye contact with. It wasn't just her natural beauty that drew me to her. I was equally entranced by the other things I'd noticed about her, like her white chucks stained with sloppy handwriting and what looked like quotes and lyrics. I wanted to crawl down on the sticky mall floor and read every word on those shoes. Not just anyone can get in, Nosering said. She nudged my future lover with her elbow. You actually need to have talent? How'd you get in? I said to my new crush. What's your talent? She looked up, shocked, not quite registering the fact that I, the really handsome guy with shaggy hair, a cool studded belt, and custom Vans, was standing in front of her asking personal questions. Or at least that's what I thought. I was so full of myself back then. When you're dead, you really see your old self through a new lens. Sylvia's got more talent in her pinky than you have in your whole body, Nosering said. Oh yeah, well my pinky knows Romeo and Juliet better than your entire theater department, I said. I'm a poet. Poet is the art of moving language, and it, like any other art, can be performed. I thrust my arms out in a grand gesture, mimicking so many actors I'd seen on stage. Athen let out a sigh. There are puppets and there are actors, Sylvia said, with her palm facing me as if to reject my dramatics. Puppets are controlled by the world. Actors have a choice and free will. Right now, I'm thinking you are more like the former. The girls in Athen all stared at me, waiting to see if I had a comeback. Not only was I absent of the words, I'm also pretty sure I wasn't even breathing. I looked to Athen, who was too caught up smoldering at Nosering with his eyebrows arched. Sylvia's words burned through me. Puppets are controlled by the world. I'd found the perfect woman. I just met you, and I know we're both super young, I said, but I would totally be down to marry you like right this second. Sylvia stood up from her seat and looked me square in the eye. I wouldn't lift a finger to save your life, let alone marry you. Let's go, Doris. Her stride parted a group of football players in line for pizza. Nosering stood up to follow her, smirking at Athen and me. Don't take it personally, she said. Not every princess can envision themselves in your perfectly rehearsed high school fairy tale. You don't understand, I said. I just met the girl I will devote my poetry to for the rest of my life. Like, you may very well be my muse, Sylvia, I called after her. No pressure or anything, but would you prefer a sonnet or dramatic monologue? My beckons rang unheard as she walked away. The girls faded into the swarming crowd. Look at this, Athens said. He picked up a handbill from the bench where Sylvia and Nosering had been sitting. I snatched it from his hands, reading the large decorative font. Peter Pan, live on stage, presented by Toledo School for the Arts. Auditions held Saturday, October 15th. That's it, I said. I'm going to audition for Peter Pan and win her over. I folded the flyer up and shoved it in my pocket. You probably can't audition, Athens said. You don't even go to that school. I guess we're just going to have to crash the auditions. Athens laughed and patted me on the back. That is the worst idea you've ever had. After meeting Sylvia, I paid little to no attention in class. I read and reread the Peter Pan novelization and play. If the teachers caught on to my lack of attention and forced me to participate, I would find a way to dedicate my work to Sylvia. In automation class, we were assigned to program traffic lights to turn from green to yellow to red. Instead, I programmed them all to blink red in a heart shape, and inside of them, digital little lights, I spelled SYLVIA with stop signs. In materials processing, we were supposed to build mousetrap-powered cars, and I named my pink contraption the Sylvia 7, which won the class race. In typing class, while everyone else hammered away in unison the keystrokes FDSA space JKL semicolon space, I utilized my time to compose a 20-page doctrine of love for Sylvia. To you who captivated me in the food court, it began, I promise my undying devotion and tenderness. You make my otherwise dull world glow with your radiance. You are the only burning star in my heart's vast sky. The morning Athen ran lines with me before the audition was the first time I looked to the sky and considered the possibility of flight. Peter Pan could fly with the help of fairy dust from Tinkerbell. Whenever I thought of Sylvia, a buzz coursed through me and amplified every step I took, every breath I drew. If Peter Pan could fly, why couldn't I? Love would be my fairy dust. Walking through the littered downtown Toledo, the Maumee River beneath us, I believed that if I leapt off the Cherry Street Bridge, something magical would prevent me from hitting the dark, dirty water. I took the cold steel rail in my hands and hoisted myself up. With the wind grazing my back and the sprawling river before me, I felt like if I took a single step, I'd be suspended above it all. Watch out for the tick-tock croc, Athens said, deadpan. But seriously, dude, don't fall. I don't have the energy to save you. You should audition, I said. I climbed down from the railing. You practically have the part of Captain Hook memorized. I unsheathed my styrofoam dagger from my backpack and went for his throat. He evaded the lunge and disarmed my dagger like a true pirate. I don't think acting is really my thing, he said. Come on, bro, I said. It's something we could do together, and I bet you'll meet tons of girls. Maybe you can hang out with that nose-ring chick. Nose-ring? Her name is Doris, which you might have overheard at the mall if you weren't so in your head all the time. I'm still not sure how I plan on asking Sylvia out, I said, reaching for the dagger and steering the topic back to my most pressing concern. Our first encounter was so pure, spur of the moment, completely spontaneous. This time she'll see me at the audition, recognize me, and know that I'm there for her, to make her see me. She didn't seem to be that into you at the mall, Athens said, forfeiting the dagger. What if she sees you and thinks you're desperate? It struck me that Athens might have been jealous because I went after Sylvia right away. But who was he to stand in the way of true love? I know you saw her first, I said, starting to cross the street, but I don't want this to come between us. Despite what you may think, Sam, he stopped in the middle of the intersection. Cars zipped around us. The world does not revolve around you. When I was alive, I thought Athen envied my bravado and charisma. If envy were possible in death, I might wish I had more of Athens' sensibilities, candor, and realism. It wasn't until after my accident that I understood what he meant that day on the bridge. The Toledo School for the Arts looked more like a sarcophagus of an industrial building in the heart of downtown than an educational institution. The closer we got to the school, the more I feared I'd throw up. Sure, I keep cool on the inside, but outside, I was a wreck. I kept imagining Sylvia and the rest of the art kids laughing at my pathetic attempt to audition. I told myself I would be as cool as James Dean and rebel without a cause. I adjusted my beanie, threw my hands in my pockets, and walked through the doors like I was a real Hollywood icon trying to be modest. The inside of the school smelled like oil paint and sweat. It was alive with creativity. We meandered through the hallways with walls covered with art for a good 10 minutes. I wondered if any of the art was Sylvia's, and I tried to find a sketch of my face among the portraits. I could have wandered those dingy hallways forever, looking for my reflection on the wall. Finally, we saw the flyer with the pirate ship and jagged hook. I expected a desk where I'd fill out information, but it was just one giant black theater room with a bunch of kids sitting on metal chairs watching the person on stage delivering a monologue. The door slammed behind me and everyone shot over to look at us. That's when I saw Sylvia sitting there in the same outfit from last week. I could barely keep myself from running over to her and reciting an excerpt from my love doctrine. When she registered who I was, she flipped her hood to cover her face and slumped down lower in her chair. "To what do we owe this pleasure?" a gray-haired woman in a black dress called from the first row. I assumed she was the theater director. "I'm here to audition," I said. "Is there a sign-up sheet?" Or, "I have never seen your face before in my life, child," she said. "Do you attend the School for the Arts?" "That's the thing," I said. "On the flyer for the audition, it didn't say anything about being a student here." "Well, I'm afraid you must be a registered student at this institution in order to perform." She lowered her glasses back down into her balcony. She lowered her glasses back down onto her bony, forlorn face and turned to resume the audition. Before the actor on stage began, I stepped forward. "But this isn't a private school. Students from all over go here, right?" "Correct," she said, turning back around. I could see Sylvia trying to become invisible. Why would she be embarrassed by me when just the other day I so valiantly confessed my admiration to her? Then, like sports programs, students from other schools should be able to try out, right? She flipped her hair, eyeing me up and down. "And what institution do you attend, child?" "Toledo Technology Academy, ma'am," I said. The students chuckled, which only fueled my need to show them what I could do. "Do you have any experience in the theater?" she asked. I asked when I was a kid, and I know this play from front to back. "Oh, so you were a child actor," she laughed at her own joke. "Then you must be eager to dazzle us." This made the students laugh harder. I noticed Doris sitting a row away from Sylvia, snickering. "You are in for it now, Romeo," Doris said. "Well, child," the director proceeded, "if you are so inclined and inspired to interrupt my audition, please. If you lust for theater, then by all means step forth and grace us with your magic. Light up this room with your symphony. Show us what you got." "Right now?" I said. I looked up to the guy on stage whose audition I botched. "Well, go on," the director said. "You've already altered the aura of the room with your paper-thin machismo." "Seriously, Mrs. Chadwick," Doris pleaded, "you're going to allow this pretentious faker to waste our time?" "Even fools deserve a chance," Mrs. Chadwick said. I could see Sylvia tightening the cord of her hoodie until it scrunched around her face. I walked past the grid of metal chairs, jumped onto the stage, and took the place of the guy before me. It felt as though my heart was hammering against my ribcage. With the stage lights beaming in my eyes, all I could see were the vague silhouettes of the kids in their chairs and Mrs. Chadwick across from me, her eyes wide and wicked as if she expected me to summon the devil. I turned around to face the curtains. Even then, I knew how cliche I looked, a know-nothing actor, but I'd once seen James Dean do it in a documentary. To get into character, he would turn away from his audience, close his eyes, and return as someone new. When I pivoted back to face the audience, I felt my body detach from my soul. "Yes, Wendy, I know fairies," I cried, "but they're nearly all dead now. You see, when the first baby laughed for the first time, the laugh broke into thousands of pieces, and they all went skipping about, and that was the beginning of fairies." I looked across the audience, not breaking character, so that I could gauge their response. Just like I thought, Cold silence. So there ought to be a fairy for every boy and girl. There isn't, of course. You see, children know such a lot now. Soon as they don't believe in fairies, there's a fairy somewhere that falls down dead. At this point, Peter Pan realizes that he can't find Tinkerbell, but something came over me and I changed the lines so that Sylvia would know once and for all that I was really there for her. I can't think that Tinkerbell's gone. Sylvia, Sylvia, where are you? Then, as if Peter Pan had taken complete control of my body, I leapt off the stage, flying towards Sylvia, and landed with a half roll to my knees and into a bow. When I stood up and looked toward the crowd, I expected them to explode in applause, but all I heard was Doris saying, "Please, somebody spare me." Sylvia bolted up and stormed out of the dark theater, Doris chasing after her. "Sylvia," I cried, "wait." I ran across the auditorium and through the door. "They can't be far," I said to myself. I started sprinting through the hallways, those makeshift galleries of student art, but didn't see Sylvia or Doris anywhere. I went outside and looked for them, but the streets were empty. "She's gone," Athens said, coming up from behind me and gasping for breath. The decrepit downtown buildings surrounded us like the walls of a maze. I called out Sylvia's name as loud as I could. Nothing but the sound of my own voice reverberating back. I was feeling depressed until I got a call the next day from Mrs. Chadwick. "You, my child, are Peter Pan," she wailed over the phone. "Of course, I had to bend some rules because you are not part of this institution. No matter. You will lead this play with Sylvia Pryor as Wendy. You will not let me down. Rehearsals begin in a week." She hung up before I could respond. So we both got the leads, Peter and Wendy, Sam and Sylvia. I showed up to the first rehearsal in green tights and a tunic. "This isn't a dress rehearsal," Doris said from the stage. "You look like Mary Martin on the poster for the 1950s version of the Broadway production." The rest of the cast and crew snickered. Beside Doris, Sylvia looked like she was about to vomit. I felt embarrassed for her. Nobody else was in costume, just t-shirt and sweatpants. "There he is, my Peter Pan," Mrs. Chadwick embraced me and eyed my clothes. A little overprepared, but I wouldn't expect anything less from an actor with such intense emotions. "Partner with Miss Pryor, run Act 1, Peter's entrance." She nudged me toward the stage. It was the moment I'd been waiting for, one-on-one time with Sylvia. When I walked onto the stage, Doris yawned in my direction, staring at me while sanding the side of the pirate ship. I wasn't about to let her attitude ruin everything. "How are you?" I asked Sylvia, ignoring Doris. "How's school going? You got a boyfriend?" "Is he serious right now?" Doris groaned. "It's fine, Doris," Sylvia said. "Can we just get on with the lines?" She tied her hair back and avoided eye contact. It was my first time being so close to her, within arm's reach. Her scent, cigarette, and sugar plum were enough to make me feel drunk. But I had to suppress my intoxication. This was my shot. I had my lines memorized, but Sylvia had imbued the entire script into her being. She finally gazed into my eyes as we circled the stage. Once we got to the part when Peter teaches Wendy and her brothers to fly, everyone, even Doris and Mrs. Chadwick, were speechless. Mrs. Chadwick stepped forward after an electric silence and faced everyone, but Sylvia and me. "This is all for rehearsal today. We meet again next week." As everyone headed toward the exit, Mrs. Chadwick turned to us. "Your chemistry is undeniable. I know that I have cast the right performers, but do not let me catch one of you trying to upstage the other again." Her eyes jumped to Sylvia as she said this. "Theater is a communal art. You will learn to view each other with respect." She stepped down from the stage and exited the room. Sylvia darted for the door. I tried to stay near her, like a shadow. "Did you hear that? Our chemistry is undeniable." She kept walking with no response. "If you ever feel like rehearsing more, I wouldn't mind coming to your house." She exhaled deeply. "School is just fine, Sam." I followed her down the hallways lined with portraits until we were both outside. She rushed to an old, rusted Buick idling across the street. The guy behind the wheel huffed on a cigar that looked too big for his rodent-like face. I wasn't sure if he was her father or what, because from a distance he looked maybe 15 years older than us. I wanted to walk up to the car and introduce myself. I wanted to learn about her personal life. Once she was inside, she slammed the door and covered her face with her hood. It looked like the driver was yelling at her and laughing. I couldn't make out the words, but I stared toward them, ready to ask what his problem was. When he saw me standing in the middle of the street staring at them, he hawked a giant spitball out the window and blasted his radio. The tires screeched as he pulled away. Sometimes I pause the adaptation of my life story right here. I rewind and I watch this guy spit at me again and again. And this